When I first met her, everything felt like it clicked into place. 9 months ago, we started what I thought was the beginning of something special. We were both 23, both figuring things out, and while neither of us had everything sorted in our lives, we had a connection that felt solid. She's smart, funny, and grounded in a way that drew me in. We both worked hard. She taught piano lessons to kids, and I juggled a job I wasn't entirely passionate about but gave me a good income. We made the effort to see each other regularly, often hanging out at her place, going on dates, or even just watching movies in our pajamas. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. That's why, when Saturday rolled around, I was looking forward to seeing her like we had planned. We were supposed to hang out at her place. Maybe around 10 p.m. we'd gotten into this comfortable routine of late-night hangouts, where I'd go over, we'd spend the night together, and the morning after, we'd have breakfast and linger into the afternoon before heading our separate ways for the rest of the weekend. It was the kind of relaxed, simple time I craved after a long week. Then, around 6 p.m., she sent me a message saying she might be late, suggesting that I come over on Sunday instead. I wasn't thrilled about that, but I wanted to be understanding. I told her I didn't mind coming later, that I was happy to wait until whatever she had going on was over, and that I could still sleep over, and we could have breakfast the next morning like we'd planned. She said okay, and that she would let me know when to leave. Naturally, I was a little curious about what she was doing. We'd talked throughout the day, and it was strange that suddenly she was too busy for the plans we'd made. I asked her what she was up to, casually, not trying to pry too much. She said she was having dinner with a client. Now, that wasn't entirely unusual. She teaches piano, and she sometimes talks with parents of the kids she teaches. But something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. I didn't press her on it, though. I let it go. 10 p.m. came, and I was ready to head over. I shot her a quick text asking if I should leave. No response for about 15 minutes. I followed up, asking again, and finally, she replied with a one-word answer, tomorrow. Now, at this point, I was starting to get a little anxious. I texted her again, asking her to call me, but she brushed me off, saying, not now. That definitely raised a flag for me. I wasn't one to freak out over every little thing, but something felt off. Finally, after a bit more back and forth, she called me. That's when she dropped the first bomb. She wasn't out with a woman or the parent of one of her students. She was having dinner with a 35-year-old man. My gut reaction was a mixture of shock, confusion, and anger. Who was this guy? Why hadn't she told me about him before? Why was she so cagey about the whole thing? I immediately felt uncomfortable. I mean, we'd been together for 9 months. And here she was, out late with another guy, canceling our plans without much explanation. It didn't feel right. I didn't want to accuse her of anything without talking it through. So I tried to keep my cool. I told her I was upset, that this crossed a boundary for me. The fact that she was out late with another guy wasn't something I could just brush off. I didn't want to be the type of boyfriend who micromanages or controls what she does. But this felt different. This wasn't just hanging out with an old friend or going to a party. This felt like something more. She called me when she got home, at 1 a.m. now. I know everyone keeps different hours, but she wasn't the type to stay out late, even when we went out together. So, again, this was out of character. We got into a heated argument. I wasn't yelling, but I wasn't calm either. I told her flat out that it felt like she was on a date with this guy, whether she realized it or not. The next day, she apologized. She said she understood why I was upset and wanted to come over to talk about it. I agreed because I didn't want to leave things in a bad place. When she came over, she seemed genuinely sorry, but I still had questions. I needed to know more. I asked her who this guy was, how long she had known him, what their relationship was, and why she hadn't mentioned him before. That's when she told me that she had known him since the spring, and they had gone out for dinner multiple times. Just the two of them. Not only that, but he wasn't a client's parent like I assumed. He was taking piano lessons from her directly. That hit me hard. The idea that she'd been spending time with this guy, going out to dinners, and not telling me about it, it just didn't sit right. I told her I couldn't move forward without more transparency. I wanted to see her communications with this guy. I wasn't proud of it, but I felt like I needed to see for myself that nothing inappropriate was going on. She refused. She said it was invasive, that she wasn't comfortable with me going through her phone. At that point, I felt like we had reached a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I told her that I couldn't continue in the relationship if she wasn't willing to be open with me. I needed to know for sure that nothing had happened between them. That there wasn't more to the story. She asked for a break instead. She didn't fight me on it. Didn't argue or accuse me of being paranoid. She just accepted it. That hurt, too. In its own way. It was like she didn't even want to try to convince me otherwise. So, I made it clear. This was a point of no return. Either she let me see what had been going on between them, or we were done. She packed up her things and left. We talked for a bit about how good things had been before all of this. And I asked her if there was anything else we hadn't communicated about. But she didn't say much. She seemed more upset that it had come to this. But she didn't tell me I was wrong or accuse me of not trusting her. She just accepted it and left. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made the right call. It wasn't just about the guy. It was about trust, about boundaries, about communication. She had gone out with him multiple times without telling me, canceled our plans to be with him, and then refused to let me see their messages. How could I not be suspicious? How could I move forward without feeling like there was always going to be this doubt in the back of my mind? Some of my friends said I was being too harsh, that I should have trusted her more. But I don't know. Trust is built on transparency. And if she couldn't be open with me about this, what else was she hiding? Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe she really didn't do anything wrong. But I couldn't get past the way it all felt, the secrecy. The late nights, the refusal to let me in. I wanted to trust her. I really did. But in the end, I couldn't. I couldn't be with someone who kept things from me. Who didn't understand why this was such a big deal. I don't regret ending things. But I still wonder sometimes if I overreacted. Maybe there was nothing to worry about. Maybe I let my own insecurities get the best of me. But I'll never know for sure. And that's what bothers me the most. All I know is that I couldn't stay in a relationship where trust was broken. Even if it was only a small crack. It's those small cracks that lead to bigger fractures. And I wasn't willing to wait around to see if that would happen.
I never thought I'd be the kind of person to second-guess my instincts so much. Normally, I'm pretty confident in what I feel and think. But lately, with everything that's happened between me and my boyfriend, I can't help but feel unsteady. My boyfriend, Jake, and I have been together for a year and a half now. At 28, he's a little older than me. And sometimes I wonder if the gap between us is bigger than I think. I'm 24, and while it doesn't seem like a huge difference on paper, I'm starting to think that maybe we're on different wavelengths, especially when it comes to what's funny and what's appropriate. I love him, though. He's amazing in so many ways. He's attentive, sweet, and thoughtful. We laugh together and have made so many memories over the past year and a half that I never thought anything could come between us. Jake is the kind of person who thrives on social energy. He has a large group of friends. And they're tight-knit. I've met all of them, hung out with them, and while I'm more reserved, I've tried to fit in. I can see why Jake values them so much. They're like family to him. And Claire, his best friend, is part of that group. She's 28, like Jake, and they've been friends for years. He's mentioned her a lot, told me stories about their friendship. And while I used to be a little insecure about it, I eventually brushed it off. I mean, what kind of girlfriend would I be if I couldn't handle him having female friends? But lately, things have started to feel off. It all started with a prank war Jake and his friends have been caught up in for weeks. Now, I'm not someone who enjoys pranks much. I'm the kind of person who likes structure, honesty, and straightforwardness. I don't have a great sense of humor when it comes to jokes that make other people uncomfortable or embarrassed. And Jake knew this from the start. I told him I'm not good with pranks. And he promised to keep me out of it, which I appreciated. I didn't mind watching them have fun with their silly antics, throwing water balloons, dyeing each other's body wash, and silly things like that. It seemed harmless enough. Then, Jake came home one night with something that sent my stomach flipping. It was a lingerie set. Red, lacy, and very provocative. He was laughing as he pulled it out of a bag, telling me it was part of his next prank on Claire. Apparently, he was planning to sneak it into her room the next time he went over. As some sort of joke. I didn't find it funny. Not at all. My mind raced with questions. Why lingerie? Why Claire? This wasn't like the other pranks they'd been doing. There was no comparison between a water balloon fight or whipped cream in someone's face and gifting someone lingerie. Especially someone who wasn't your girlfriend. I couldn't help but feel this crossed a boundary. Wasn't it inappropriate for a man in a relationship to give another woman lingerie? Even as a joke? I told Jake as much. I asked him why he thought it was okay. Why he didn't see how uncomfortable it made me. And instead of listening, he got defensive. He told me that Claire was cool like that. That she would laugh and think it was hilarious. He made me feel like I was the one being ridiculous. Like I didn't understand their dynamic and was overreacting. He even brought up how he always told me Claire was beautiful and way out of his league. Like that was somehow supposed to explain why this prank was okay. That's when everything I had been brushing off came rushing back. Jake always talked about how Claire was gorgeous and how she was the coolest girl he'd ever met. He said it in front of me. Sure, and he'd laugh it off. But it had always made me feel weird. I just never wanted to come across as insecure or jealous. So I'd smile and laugh with him. But now, with the lingerie in front of me, all those little comments seemed bigger, more significant. I tried to tell him that it wasn't about me not being able to take a joke. But that it felt wrong. I asked him how he'd feel if I gave one of my guy friends something like that. He dismissed it, saying that it wasn't the same and that I was too conservative. That I needed to loosen up and open my mind. And maybe I'm too conservative. Maybe I do have outdated ideas about relationships. But in that moment, I just felt humiliated. He didn't see my perspective at all. And worse, he made me feel like I was the problem. I wasn't accusing him of cheating or being interested in Claire. But I was pointing out that this kind of joke felt disrespectful to me. His girlfriend, how could he not see that? Things escalated quickly from there. I told him I wanted to break up. I didn't mean to say it. But I was so frustrated and upset that it just came out. I was ready to walk away from it all if he couldn't understand why this was bothering me so much. And yet, even when I said it, he didn't seem to grasp the gravity of what was happening. He just doubled down, saying I was being dramatic and insecure. That I was overreacting and should trust him. He said that the fact he told me about it at all meant I should know there was nothing shady going on. He kept insisting that I was making a big deal out of nothing. Then Claire got involved. She called me to explain that this was just their dynamic. That Jake and his friends have been pulling pranks like this for years. She told me I'd get it when I was older and that I needed to learn how to relax. That was a blow, too. I felt patronized and belittled. Was I really just being immature? Did I need to grow up? I started questioning everything. Was I too sensitive? Too insecure? Was I blowing this all out of proportion like they said? My best friend, who's always been my rock, told me to trust my gut. She said if something feels wrong, it's wrong. But even with her support, I still couldn't shake this feeling of doubt. Jake was right that he'd never given me a reason to be insecure before. He'd never hidden anything from me. He'd never acted shady. But this felt like a massive slap in the face. Even if he didn't mean it that way. And Claire backing him up made me feel like I was standing alone, trying to defend a boundary that they both saw as unnecessary. Jake and I haven't officially broken up. We had a big fight. But I left it open-ended. He apologized. But not for what he did, just for how I felt about it. I think that's what hurts the most. He still thinks I'm wrong for feeling this way. That I'm the problem because I can't take a joke. And now, I'm stuck. Do I let this go and try to move forward? Do I stick to my guns and risk losing someone I love over something that might be silly in the grand scheme of things? I hate feeling like this. Like I'm trapped between my own feelings and everyone else's expectations. I don't want to be the jealous girlfriend who overreacts to everything. But I also don't want to be the kind of person who lets things slide just to keep the peace. Jake is someone I saw a future with. But now I'm not so sure. If he can't respect something that clearly bothers me, how can we move forward? How do I know this won't happen again? Maybe I am blowing this out of proportion. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. But at the end of the day, I just want to feel respected. I want to feel like my feelings matter. And right now, I don't.